On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, who's going to start for the Oklahoma City Thunder? Who benefits the most from the Isaiah Hartenstein contract? And are the Thunder the threats out west, the favorites to win the conference?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and inside the Thunder beat writer Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're discussing the Oklahoma City Thunder, again, signing Isaiah Hartenstein, the biggest free agent signing in team history. What will that look like? A lot of you have questions, and I'll try to educatedly guess on a lot of them and see where things shake out. So we're going to get into that. Who's going to start? Are the Thunder the favorites out west? Who benefits the most from this signing and more? Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So when you look at this situation, first of all, I think that you can, look at the Hartenstein conversation, the Caruso conversation even, and you can get lost in what that means and the scope of the team and narrow in on the individual. When in reality, these two players specifically, you have to look at how they affect the team and the whole body of work and everything in between. So we're going to do that coming up. But on the topic of who starts, I still believe that the starting five is going to be SGA, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, J-Dub, and Chet. And that's your starting five for most matchups. And you stay true to your five-out system. You stay true to what got you the number one overall seed in the West last year. You just saw that style of play navigate an 82-game season. And what have you done to that style of play except for enhance it? You've got a much better off-ball player, right? Alex Caruso can play the off-ball role a billion times better and more effective than Josh Giddey, who now gets to go to Chicago, play on the ball, and play a more style that's suited for his game, and he's going to grow and he's going to develop into something really good in Chicago. So it's the best of both worlds, whereas now you've plugged out that Giddey piece for a guy who shoots 40% from three and is a two-time all-defensive member. So I think that that's massive, and this style of play obviously can work. What I do think about the starting lineup, while I would, if I had to project right now, if I had to, lay down a few shekels, that's the starting five I think that the Thunder would go with. I don't believe it'll be as rigid as you're used to. I think that there's certain matchups where you could see the Thunder start both Chet and Isaiah. But I think that people really lose in the shuffle the benefit of being able to elongate these high-level rim protection minutes. Like what Hartenstein can do in the middle is something that no other backup big man on this roster can do. And we know what Chet can do at the rim. When you play them together, you're now at some point going to have to pay the piper for that. You're at some point going to have to put on the floor guys who can't protect the rim very well. To play them separately, you've now covered all 48 minutes in rim protection while playing spurts of them. So a lot of things are going to be true at once. Just because I think that Hartenstein will come off the bench doesn't mean I believe that they'll never start a game with those two guys. It also doesn't mean that they're not going to play within the flow of a game together. I think that for the majority of it, it'll be that starting five of Caruso in place of Giddey. I think there's going to be games where they play both big men right from tip. I think that both big men will share the floor together more than the 2% of minutes that Jay Will and Chet shared together last year. So they'll play a double big lineup more often this year. But in general, I think what you've really done with this move is you have elongated your front court rotation and depth and your ability to protect the rim and ability to play your style. Because even though Hartenstein can't shoot from beyond the arc, He does everything else extremely thundery. He's automatically the best screener J-Dub's ever played with. He's automatically the best screener that Shea's gotten the benefit of in Oklahoma City. He's automatically going to be someone who can make out of the short roll, who can redirect passes, and who can play that thundery style of not having the ball stick to you and play off the catch. He's a really good cutter to file in the back end of this drive-heavy offense. So, like, he does everything thundery, including physicality, rebounding, and the defense he brings as I think that he can defend on an island as best you can as a 7-footer. You know, there's few in the league that you'd rather have than him out there at that size. So he's very thundery, except for he can't shoot, which is something that you can totally work around for that position and for what he can bring to the table offensively. So I said to say this. I think that he's going to be a really good player for Oklahoma City, and I think that I can see on the comment section, on social media, but around, how are they going to pay $30 million for a backup big man? I mean, a backup big man for $30 million? I think that there's a lot to take from that. Number one, this is not your grandpa's NBA. Like these guys are getting paid, and they're getting paid pretty handsomely. Number two, who cares? Frankly, not to be harsh about it, but would it make you feel better if you made $25 million instead of 30? And then at that point, right? At that point, you're spending $5 million extra to get the best backup big man in the NBA. That I think is a trade-off worth having. Especially whenever you didn't give up any young assets, any draft picks, nothing. And furthermore, for the notion of like, well, you don't pay someone $30 million to come off the bench, they clearly think he's going to be a starter. Listen, if there's any franchise, that's proven to you time and time again that they don't particularly care about tradition and public perception and what's supposed to happen, who's supposed to start, who's supposed to fill positions, who's supposed to be, the ringleaders and all of this. The Thunder have continuously bucked trends. They're just going to stop now all of a sudden? All of a sudden now, Isaiah Hartenstein's 30 mil is a bridge too far. I don't think so. And you can't let it get lost in the conversation that the reason you're paying Isaiah Hartenstein $30 million is because you have the luxury of doing so. You have the ability to financially afford it and optically afford it. This is the benefit of drafting so well. This is the benefit of two of your top three guys being on rookie contracts. This is the benefit of not yet having Shea on a supermax contract. It's because you've gotten them so good, so young, that you can afford to do this. And so whenever you compare his salary to other players in that starting lineup, it makes no sense. Like, yeah, he makes more money than the starting five because of the stage of his career that he's at. And that won't get lost in translation. So the price tag is not going to define the minutes. The price tag is not going to define his role. So again, I think that the majority of the games will be started by Caruso in place of Giddey. But there's going to be opportunities to start, Hartenstein with Chet. And at that point, it's an interesting conversation. And I get why people want to have that conversation. It's more interesting to kind of figure out, well, who would you bench between Caruso and Dort? Me personally, if you wanted to have that conversation and for games where they do start big, I would look at Caruso off the bench only because that's not an indictment on him versus Dort or whatever, but because I think that functionally Caruso could help the bench unit more than Dort could as a playmaker. And if Cason's on the ball, he's a better off-ball shooter and things of that nature. But nonetheless, I think that while it won't be as rigid as hey, if these five guys are healthy, that's starting 1 through 82. Perhaps there is more, lenience there in terms of, evaluating the matchups. I do think that that'll be their bread and butter. And if they need to course correct in the first 3 minutes, you have the ability to do so. Whereas before, you were looking at a team that couldn't handle the curve, so to say. They had their fastball, And it was a good one. The small ball, versatile lineup was a good one. But if you went big, they couldn't necessarily go as big as you and match up there. Now they can. And they can accomplish anything on the floor. So are they the favorites out west? We're going to ask that question coming up. Plus, who benefits the most from these moves? But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Game Time. Check out Game Time today. Game Time's great. Game Time is the best place for you to get your tickets, whether it's concerts, movies, theaters, sporting events, whatever you're going to go to, whatever you're into, it's at Game Time right now. Because if you're going to go to an MLB game this summer, it's a lot of fun, or even a minor league baseball game this summer in Oklahoma City. It's a lot of fun. You can go to Game Time and get last-minute deals, saving up to 60% by buying last-minute tickets to sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, and theaters. You can also get flash deals and zone deals. I love their all-in pricing. I love the fact that I can just see everything up front, the entire total, no surprises, no fees at checkout. I know exactly what I'm paying and bargaining for whenever I'm on the front-facing app. You can also get views from your seat. So if you've never been to that venue before and maybe you want to go see some traveling acts, you can go there with the views from your seat. So go there right now. It is going to take the guesswork out of buying tickets this summer with Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Go download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. A little bit of a surprise as the Pacers have just signed James Wiseman. I don't know why they continue to bury Therese Walker down the depth chart, and maybe Walker should be and is elevated above Wiseman. But nonetheless, interesting news breaking on the pod. But who benefits the most from the Thunder signing Isaiah Hartenstein? I think it's Chet Holmgren, but maybe not for the reasons you think. Like, yes, it's going to be awesome that the Thunder have the benefit of, like, when they take Chet off the floor, you now put in a rim protector who you can pass the baton to. Whereas last year, you look at the plus minuses and what happened with Chet off the floor, it was not that seamless transition. And I think that whenever you have the dueling big lineups of those two guys, it's going to look really good for the Thunder. But who I think benefits the most from this entire offseason is Chet. Hartenstein included, Caruso included, everything included. And the reason why I think that is because you have to look at these moves in the totality of the big picture. Let's take the Caruso for Giddey starting five. Walk with me down that path of what happened last year with the starting five. They were good. They had +8, everything. It was difficult. Life was hard to get to that +8. That's how good this team was. That life was hard on them, and they still were a plus in their starting five. But why was that? Why was life difficult? Because they were cross-matching, and they were able to put their big man on Giddey to stay close to the rim, and also not force their big man to play in space with Chet. So that had a lot to do with Chet, as well as it did with Josh Giddey's three-point shooting, but a lot to do with Chet. Now, here's the kicker. You can still choose to defend the Thunder that way. Like, the cross-matching will not be completely eliminated because shot variance is way more, variant than Chet playing in space with a center and just dancing with your guy to the rim. So I think that there's still cross-match. Here's the kicker, though. In that cross-match, you're now kicking to a guy in the corner who shoots 40% from three. And as we've seen with coaches, like playoff series, the biggest moment, the biggest setting, the biggest scenario of a season, you go face the New Orleans Pelicans, and they're dumping the ball inside of Valanciunas for the first 11 straight points of the game. But they have to get out of that once you start hitting your shots and once you kind of counter that, right? They have to get out of it, and they have to go small, and they have to play your game, and you dictate the terms. What you can do now is dictate the terms of an agreement of arrangement whenever you're looking at cross-matching. Because if you cross-match on the Thunder and leave Caruso open, right, it's a 40% three-point shooter. He's going to knock him down. And you'll say, well, they'll just switch over to Lou Dort. Like, so now instead of having two inconsistent shooters, you only have one. Lou Dort last year, had an uptick in three-point shooting, and Lou Dort was a really good three-point shooter that if you just leave him completely alone, He's going to make you pay. So life just gets easier because then if you start to play straight up on these guys and you hide your worst guard on Dort and you put your center on Chet, you get Chet top of the key and he is just feasting. So that's a massive benefit. Then you look at when they do play double big and Chet slides over to play that roving Jaren Jackson Jr. type role. That can annihilate teams down the stretch of games. Should it be a competitive game where you need everything? And it benefits the Thunder as a whole of look at the way they can play now. Without a shadow of a doubt, the Thunder are the best small ball team in the NBA. Like we've established that, we've seen that, we've experienced what that's like. But now it goes from this team is too small to this jumbo lineup of functionally. So again, hear me about functionality. Shea, Caruso, Dub, Chet, Hartenstein. That is massive size across the board. That is massive functional size across the board. And you even look in the division. The Timberwolves, they have Cat and Rudy Gobert. The Thunder out physical those Timberwolves with that big lineup. Caruso can defend 1 through 4. You've seen the improvements from Shea defensively and the way he can disrupt things defensively. You've seen Jada be able to play defense, and if you slide him up to the 3, I think he'll be even more effective in those double big lineups. So I think that the double big lineups will be a tool in the toolbox and will be something that they go to. But again, you've got to kind of pick and choose when to throw that card. Because if in a 48-minute game, you're going to need to space out those minutes of always having a big man on the floor, getting the proper rest for them, and then finding out when you can put them together to just suffocate a team. It's exciting. I mean, you just have every option available. There is no way, to dictate things for Oklahoma City. Now, just like any team in the world, right? They can have a night where they just can't hit a shot. They can have a night where they're not crisp rotating defensively. But at their best, at their apex together, this team complements each other well. This team can play a lot of different styles in one night. To where it's tough to scout. It's tough to have a game plan. It's tough to prepare for all the different looks that they can give you. And that's what Caruso's done. That's what Hartenstein's done. And then you still have the draft class that, in a year from now, you'll talk about Topic. But for right now, Dylan Jones is a very versatile player who, I think could get minutes as a rookie. AJ Mitchell's a spunky, fun, electric scorer who I would assume plays a lot with the blue early on, but potentially as he refines his skill set, defensively, potentially that helps for him to get on the floor in the NBA. So, are they the favorites out west? I think that they are. I think that you look at what they have, and people are, a bit nervous. I think to fully say it, although they're going to be a popular pick by the time this summer's over. But we've seen Jokic do it, right? We've seen Luka do it. The bottom line is we've seen Shea do it too. Like last year, he was incredible in the playoffs. He was the best player on the floor in every series. He happened to lose the second round to Luka, but he was incredible. And if you project Chet and Jada to take that step forward as like a rising star, you now have a top 5 guy without a doubt. Like there's no doubt Shea's in the top 5. Back-to-back top 5 finishes and MVP, runner-up last year. You have 2 rising stars flanking him who I wholeheartedly believe will play at an all-star caliber year. Now, will they make an all-star team? Who knows? One of them probably will, but it's tough to get 3 up there. You've got to be winning a ton of games to get 3 in the all-star game, especially to be cracking your first ever all-star teams, for each of them. So all-star caliber level, I think that they'll both be playing there, flanking a top 5 guy in the league. And then you just look at how seamlessly these players fit together and the depth works together. And you really see how the Thunder are poised to match up with any play style, any time. And so I would pick the Thunder to win the West right now. And depending on where you look, they're the favorites in some places. And I think that by the time October rolls around and you start to, hear all the different shows and prognosticators and everything else, they will be a popular pick to win the conference. They'll be a popular pick um, to run away with the West maybe in the regular season. When you talk about kind of the mentality of this team, I think that this team will still take that regular season extremely seriously, which you can't guarantee in the modern NBA that a lot of other teams will. And then in the playoffs, functionally, if healthy, which is the caveat for every team ever, if healthy in the playoffs, this team can play any way that you need them to play and be good at it. So I think that the Thunder will win the West this year. I think that the Thunder will be awesome this year, and we'll see if that all comes true. It's easy to look at that on paper. It's obviously got to come true on the court. We'll talk about what's next for this team coming up. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Folks, whenever you look at this team, I know that it's almost like a sugar rush of the Caruso deal, the draft, Isaiah Hartenstein. What's next? What's next? What's next? Perhaps what's next is you get ready to go for next season. You get ready to go for the fall. Now, maybe they make another move, and they technically have the ability to do that. But the Thunder have historically, whenever they've been at this level, like when they've been this good, and then they've had this amount of expectations, they've taken an open roster spot into the season with them, and they still have that $8 million MLE, which they can take into the season with them for the buyout market and things like that. So it's not a guarantee that they do anything else. It's also Sam Presti. So he can pull off anything in the world at a drop of a hat. So maybe this will all look silly. I think that the key ingredients are in the kitchen right now. Maybe you'll come home with a backup jar of salt, but everything you need is crossed off the list. When your wife sends you to the store with a list, you did good. You did good. You got everything. Now, maybe you snuck something extra in there, like a Hershey's bar or something. That's fun. But what you need to cook the dinner, I think you have. So I wouldn't foresee a massive move happening, or a massive trade. I think that it's pretty well. I think it's pretty well laid out, right? Of what this roster is. The Thunder are clearly comfortable taking that spot into the season. One thing you could do is, maybe you reward somebody, maybe you reward Keontae Johnson, who was excellent in the G League last year. Put him on a standard deal. Who knows? Maybe you just slide AJ Mitchell in there and put Keontae back on a two-way. Although we expect that AJ Mitchell will be on a two-way deal, we don't really know that for a fact. We'll wait and see what the team announces. I think that's kind of what you're looking at. You're not looking at some massive deal. In terms of Lauri Markkanen, can you just please give that part a rest? I don't think it'll happen. And I think that you shouldn't want it to happen, really. You shouldn't want to give up a ton of assets, which is what Danny Ainge will make you pay. Look at his trade history. A ton of assets for someone who you have no prayer of re-signing, or you'll have to sacrifice one of your core three. And I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that this core three, every member of it is better than Lauri Markkanen, and will have a better career than Lauri Markkanen. So I wouldn't want to, see the Thunder pay the piper of what it would take to get Lauri Markkanen of 7 first-round picks and Casey Wallace and whatever else for a guy that you just can't bring back. The Thunder cannot sign, and no team can sign for max contract guys. The Clippers, who literally cannot tank, they owe their draft pick from that of Kingdom Come to someone else. They literally cannot take, and they balked. Ballmer balked at the 4th year for Paul George. Whenever you can't pivot, there is no pivot. There is no, okay, this is over. Let's wash our hands of Kawhi, wash our hands of Russ and Harden, and it's just over. They literally cannot pivot, but they also could not give Paul George the 4th year, and didn't think that was wise. Financially, didn't think that was wise with the new CBA repercussions. So I just think that the writing's on the wall of why would you want to bring in a fourth max slot who needs a max? So you just can't bring back. Plus, as I've been saying since the Lauri Markkanen stuff started, we've seen Lauri Markkanen as a fourth option. He's not good. Now, maybe he's grown. Maybe he's changed. Of course, the fourth option in this environment is much different than the fourth option that he had before. But it's also tough once you've reached that number one option all-star level to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And so then, would you rather have Chet, taking the shots and being on ball and exploring his game, or Lauri? J-Dub or Lauri? Because the one that's for sure not going to get bumped by Lauri is Shea. But like those two guys, I think that you would much rather see this team bank on the Dub and Chet growth and be able to have such a robust rotation and depth around them to complement them and to get them where they need to go than to place your bets on 2 years of Lauri Markkanen, who we haven't really seen being good in that role. So I just don't think that the Lauri stuff will happen, and I wouldn't do it personally if I was in the position of the Thunder. I just would not make that move, because I think that you have those kind of guys that can take you there, that can get you to a championship. You have those kind of guys at the top and at the bottom. And I think that something that might get undersold a little bit of, like, when you look back at last year, the fact that the Thunder played 11 guys to a casual NBA fan feels unnecessary, because they were healthy. It was entirely necessary, and it, I think, helped them be healthy, but also it was entirely necessary because you got the growth and development of playing those guys. And the odds say, and knock on wood, no one ever wishes this on anyone or anything like that, the odds say you're not going to experience that level of health again. Right? Like, that's what the odds say. They had an unbelievably good year of health. So mortgaging that depth that you've cultivated, where you can go 11, 12 deep, you would not want to sacrifice that, in my opinion, for Lauri Markkanen, whenever you already have the guys at the top necessary. So what's next? I don't think really much of anything. I mean, I think that you could reward Keontae Johnson. I think that you could bring in someone of that ilk, but I don't think that there's going to be another splash move. I think that there could be a move. I'll put it to you like this: it won't be a move that, like, non-sicko fans enjoy, right? Like, it will not be a move that unifies Twitter like yesterday's move did, or like the Caruso move did. It'll be a move that, like, diehard, I will listen to Locked On Thunder in August fans really like and really are interested in. But the casual observer, they're on to football season. So if they do another move, I think it'll be like that probably. But again, Sam Presti can pull a rabbit out of his hat at any time. That's today's show. Thank you so much for listening. So far this week, we've done our free agency preview, Hartenstein signing, and now who's going to start. On tomorrow's show, we're projecting to have Brandon Rabar. Of course, it's a holiday week, so I'm not gonna hold him to it if he can't get it done. But we're projecting to have Brandon Rabar on tomorrow's show, and then we'll go from there. So thank you so much for listening, and until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.